New studio, new monitors, nightmare mixing. I nearly deleted this track. So the track I'm talking about is Eventuality. It came out on the 3rd of April, which is roughly a week ago now. And the track was done. I wrote it 2 years ago. It was being supported, got really well received. Wasn't what I would have called like a final mix down, but definitely good enough to be played and was being played. But towards the end of last year, I moved to this room. I stripped out a room in my house and kind of acoustically treated this room. And I also bought some new monitors because a pair of my monitors broke. I bought a pair of Barefoot Footprint 03s. They're amazing. Really, really happy with them. They have a much better frequency response to the monitors that I had before that, which were Genelec 8030s. That's the ones. I really liked them, but they were quite limited in their frequency response. And I'm not bashing Genelec because I do love Genelec monitors. I've been using them for years. So to move to a new brand, a new manufacturer, Barefoot, didn't come easy. I tested out tons. So back to this tune being a nightmare. Moved to my new room, had these new monitors, and I just got used to these monitors actually in my old space. So imagine, getting familiar with a new monitor in another room, which wasn't treated, was not in the best setup at all, to then move into a room that was much better, treated for production. Then moving them in here, it was a bit of a nightmare because I wanted this track to obviously come out. And when I listened to Eventuality in this space, it just was not how I knew it sounded. And there's two problems or two reasons why. Either it wasn't right in the first place, but the old room wasn't showing it or representing how it truly sounded, or this new room was creating like crazy frequencies, anomalies, where it was like, say, boosting the bottom end or doing something crazy to make me feel like it wasn't right. So anyway, ended up building some bass traps, some of these panels. And what's great about these panels actually, and in this room I put up a picture rail, and what that meant is these panels actually hung like a picture, and I can slide them backwards and forwards. So I was able to continuously move these around, if you see what I mean, like going forwards and backwards until it was doing the job, which it does now. And luckily for me, it was actually this room showing me problems in my track, which is what you want. Like when you move into a new studio and you've got new monitors, you're hoping that's what's going to happen, is that you're going to make better sounding music. And in this case, that's exactly what's happening. It's like these monitors show me things that were not right, or I was making choices that I would not normally make. So it's all good. But when it came to Eventuality, the first things I noticed was the kind of lower mid-range, say between like 150 to 300, 400, was very, very boxy sounding, and the kick was mega loud, and the bottom end was just too much, and I was trying to push frequencies to compensate that. And if you're a producer and someone who mixes yourself, you know how this goes. It just escalates. You're trying to push frequencies to compensate for another problem, and then you turn the lower end up again, then the top end, and then before you know it, you're just constantly chasing something that you can't fix. So I'm going to go through, play you this track, show you some of the things that I noticed, how I fixed them. Right then, so here we are in front of my project. This is Eventuality. This is the one that actually came out. I'm going to play a tiny bit of the intro and let you hear the drop. There you go. So, the reason I found this particularly frustrating is I don't dwell on mixes at all. I, like most people, I kind of mix as I go, get the vibe right, obviously tweak here and there. But if it's dropping heavy and it feels like it's doing the job and I can't hear any issues, then it's kind of done. Like, I don't really spend days listening to it in all different scenarios. I just don't. I mean, that's probably from a little bit from experience, because I've done that for years back in the early days. But one of the first things, like I said, when I moved to this room, is I noticed that the kick was extremely loud and boxy. So I addressed that. Let's just take a listen to this. Yes, if you can see here, I took quite a lot out of 500, and if you hear that, I think it was like this. It's just got a real nasty boxiness that I didn't like. See, now by doing that, it kind of made it a lot more low-end focused, that kick, which is what I wanted. I didn't want it to be super like polished and punchy in your face. And when I was playing this in clubs, it did sound good, but that the kick was just too much. It was really like out there, like it was almost like the loudest thing in the track, which again, if that's what you want, that's absolutely fine. And this room really kind of showed me that this was a problem, whereas back in my old room, that didn't happen. So that's a good thing. The sub was really loud, which is this channel here. It's not Diva. Or is it Diva? No, it's massive. So yeah, the sub's made it massive. And it literally just follows my bass line. If you're interested in how I treat subs and mid basses, I've done a video on that. You can go and check it out. I also have some subs you can grab that I made as well. That'll be down below. So there's a fine balance between your sub and everything else in your tune. And what can happen is if the sub's too loud, it causes your, when you're mastering, it causes your limiter to overwork, and it kind of affects lots of things. It kind of affects your stereo image a little bit, and the top end, you kind of can't push it quite as loud as you might have wanted to. And in this case, when I moved to this room, it just seemed way too much, and like it was masking a lot of the top end. So I'm going to show you. We'll turn it up. I'll play it and I'll turn it up, and you'll hopefully hear. It might take you a little while, so you can go back and watch this bit over and over again until you can kind of hear what it's doing. But I want you to focus on the stereo width and the top end, kind of like high mids, top ends, like the kind of percussive, snare-ish sounds, and the hi-hats and the tambourine. When I push this sub, you're going to notice those disappear a little bit. Right, I'm going to play it again, but I'm going to turn it down, okay? Right, so I'm going to do that again, but I want you to listen to, there's that vocal, it's going to, and there's those little high notes, those little pings. Focus on those, because they kind of get lost a little bit when the sub is too loud. Let's have a listen. See, I can hear that, and it's making the atmospheric side of this tune really like open up and engulf me, whereas like the sub was swamping a lot of that information. And all I was trying to do is match what I thought I was hearing before, if you see what I mean. Because, like, before I thought everything was fine, and then coming in here, I was like, oh, well, it's not actually. And I've played this tune out since making all these tweaks, and like in a club, it sounds amazing. So yeah, so it, I was close to just like I'd gone over it so many times and done so many different versions, and this is a big problem I find with new producers. Is you're stuck in this constant tweaking stage, and the problem that happens with that is you get bored. Like, you get bored with the track, you lose perspective of what is actually working and what the point of that tune was in the first place and what excited you. So you end up tweaking, you end up getting obsessed with your snare, with your kick, and then you're turning the snare up, you're EQing the snare, you're doing the same with the kick. And the point, well, really, people that listen to this, like on Spotify or in a club, these small changes, even though sometimes necessary to you, like to them, they're really not. They're not going to come up to you later and go, oh, yeah, I remember you played a version 3 months ago and your snare, yeah, it sounds much better now. You've turned that up a little. Yeah, that sounds really good. And and your sub, now you've reduced it a bit. The whole thing comes alive. Like, most people don't notice this stuff. It's you. And one of the most powerful things is to learn when a tune is done and when a mix is done. It's a bit like a painter or an artist. It's like almost like the biggest skill you can have is knowing when something's finished, because you're not going to run out of paint, are you, as a painter, or run out of clay. You can just keep adding and keep adding and keep adding and taking away and keep adding and paint over. And it's like the real skill of being an artist is to just go, it's done. Like, I don't need to do anymore. And but that takes time and confidence. So let's have a little look at this tune, as in the structure behind it, what I was trying to achieve, and what kind of sparked the track. I didn't really sit down with any major plans. I think I was just going through some presets and sounds that I'd already made before. And this little sound here, is what sparked off the whole of this track. Like, I made that and I was like, that's it. That's like set a tone. Straight away from hearing that, it's like, I'm no longer in this room. I'm not somewhere else. And these sounds are just like, they've taken me somewhere. I've been transported. And that's what I really like to do with my music. I switched it up as we get going. And I did like further kind of atmospherics. These kind of like metal, these glass kind of like metal sounds, they all add like a pace, a little bit of tension, making you feel like, oh, something's going to happen. And then I dropped everything out and then moved like straight into the drop. So from all these initial sounds, like I said, it kind of straight away, maybe I kind of knew what I wanted to do then. And I knew I wanted to be quite percussive led. Like, there isn't a snare in this tune. It's just these guys. And then one other thing, when I moved to this room, like I was talking about, there was some issues, is I felt like these sounds were lacking a bit of body. So, like a snare, you have like a snap, like the transient, and then you have the body. And I felt like this sound was missing that. So I made a layer by affecting these two sounds as they played, and then bounced that to make kind of like its own unique layer, which is this. It's kind of, you know, it's filling that 500 hertz range, which these aren't necessarily doing that well. Yeah, so they're like kind of tapering off from about 800 or 900 hertz downwards. So when they're all together, they sounded really nice and full. This, I felt, fitted perfectly with those atmospheric sounds I was talking about. And then I wanted a, you know, kind of like a bit of a gnarly bass, but nothing too insane, you know, just something that could be like a bit of a rolling mid-range bass and just like solid sub, which were these two. The bass was made in Albino, classic VST synth, still using it today. Sounds like this. And I'm not really doing anything to that. I think I've got a compressor and I'm just side chaining it slightly and a further EQ, which isn't doing massive amounts. So altogether, I did this little vocal stab. There you go. So let's have a listen to that. You can get. So they're doing their job, which is really good. It sounds like it's in the same space. And I really like natural sounding reverbs. I don't really like... There's some reverbs that sound like you're in a toilet. Do you know what ones I mean? They're kind of really quite metallic sounding and artificial. I like more like convulsion reverbs, ones that emulate a space. And I use those a lot in my productions. We also had these kind of strings that help move the track along, kind of like a question answer thing. You've got the bong, ding, and then you got this ding, 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 ding. Back in the day, we were so strict about structures and it used to wind me up so much. Like we used to have like 32 bar drops and then it was like 64 bars and then you had to have another break. And like, I was just like, you know, why are we doing this? You know, and then I think it wasn't too long into my productions that I just started doing my own kind of structures. Like I really like having, say, a 16 bars, and then the last kind of 4, you're almost having like a little rest, and then it means you're tricking the mind, as in like, oh yeah, okay, and then you could almost just drop back into the same drop. It's just you're tricking people's mind into thinking that something's happening, something's going to change, but it doesn't necessarily change, if that makes sense. And then you just make small changes. So when we drop back in here, I just added these little shakers, which are quite nice. They're quite like bitty. I think I might have bit crushed these just to make them thicker and like stand out in the mix. That's what I do sometimes. Rather than trying to boost frequencies, I degrade sounds a little bit and they're thicker and kind of cut through in a mix. And when we dropped into this, I also added these kind of real gnarly bass sounds. Yeah, man, that's Massive X. If you don't use Massive X, by the way, it's a sick sick synthesizer. So yeah, all these little things, little additions help bring the track along. When I moved to this room, I didn't really need to muck around with things like that. All of that was fine. Like the changes I did have to make were quite small. It's just, it was about taking the time to just get it exactly how I wanted. And then another way you do that is by listening to a lot of music that you've kind of made before that you knew you were happy with, or music that you know sounds good when you've listened to it in all different places, like on headphones, cars, wherever. You know, get used to how that sounds in the new room and the new monitors, and then you're able to make much better judgment. But like I said, with this, it was like what most people struggle with is, you know, the sub element of dubstep and balancing that with everything else that you've got going on. So I'm pretty good at that, but this room flipped it on its head a little bit. But I'm there now, thank you. So that's it really. There's not a lot of elements to this tune. Like if you look, so like all these sounds here at the bottom are purely like, they're just like effects. They're not really doing a lot, like shakers. You know, big hits to help move it along. But as in like actual elements, there's the high, this high sound I was showing you. And then it's just all basses. There's this string that I explained, which only comes in, it's not even in the track that often. A few reverses of existing sounds, all just to help the track move and flow. There's not a ton of drums. I mean, what have I got here? A lot of these are muted. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's like 7 channels of drums. I'll just play those. On this one. So that's it. This is Eventuality. It's quite a simple tune. And I hope you can realise that it doesn't need to be complicated. It's just having good elements from the beginning, and don't be afraid to strip stuff out. That's what I always do. Like I kind of have a stage of writing stuff, throwing loads of stuff down, and then I have kind of like an editing stage where sometimes the better question to ask yourself first is, what can I take away, rather than what does this need, what do I need to add? Because I think people's first reaction is always thinking they need to add more, and that's not always the case. A lot of times when I've worked with other producers, or when I used to produce for vocalists, and they would show me stuff that they've made, it would normally always be that they've got the idea and it's very minimal, and you don't, you know, there's just tons of fluff that just isn't needed. So try doing that next time. Same with mixing. Everyone wants to turn everything up, like maybe just for a change, say to yourself, what can I take down in volume to let the things shine that I really want to let shine? Otherwise you're just playing that thing I mentioned before, where you're just trying to catch up and you're just turning everything up and up and up, and that's just a pain in the arse. Also, don't go too crazy on the mix side of things. Like if I show you, so this is my mixer. Tons of these plugins aren't even active, and that's it really. There's not a lot going on. If you look at all the channels I've got, there's not a lot of plugins. Most of them are artistic rather than me compressing stuff for the sake of compressing it. I think that's another real illusion. Is so many people feel like you've got to have a compressor on every channel and an EQ on every channel. Like you don't necessarily need to EQ everything. Loads of people have this thing about low passing, cutting out all the bottom end of everything. I mean, sometimes I do that and I feel like it just loses the soul. So you need to be a bit careful of that. So, but yeah, I hope this video helps you, gives you a little insight in how I made this tune, how I overcame some issues in my studio. Obviously, you can take your music outside your studio to check it as well. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back very soon. Till then, peace.